Hi, my name is Brian Lottie, and today I'll be talking about the impact of sharks in the oceanic environment and what it means to actually be a shark. Here's my introduction. The topics I'll be covering is their classification, who they're related to, their natural food source, and if it's related to attacks on people, the apex predator's role in their underwater kingdom, the results of general knowledge when I interviewed 15 of my coworkers, finding out if sharks are immune to cancer, do other cultures use sharks for medical purposes, and does it result in a declination in their species? The next one is just how many sharks are on the endangered species list, and is there something special about the shark's cartilage? I'm also going to be talking about changing the public's perception so that way they're not as intimidated or fearful of sharks and what we can do to change it. Then I'll go on and talk about reviewing ecological and medical benefits that sharks can present and how we can manage and maintain shark populations while decreasing attacks on people. And then I'll give my conclusion. So starting off with the classification, they're obviously in the kingdom of Animalia, but their phylum is Chordata, which means that at some point during a shark's life, they possess a notochord, a dorsal nerve cord, pharyngeal slits, endostyle, and a postanal tail. And then they're part of the, if I get this wrong, excuse me, the chondrichthyes, and more specifically, the elasmobranchi, meaning they have to have 5 to 7 pairs of gills, rigid dorsal fins, and small placoid scales on their skin. So that brings me to the next point of, are they related to sea bass or grouper? The answer really is they're not specifically, aside from their phylum, maybe, of really being related. They're actually more closely related to sawfish in the top left screen. The top right picture is a skate, and the bottom picture is a picture of manta rays, but the ray family in general. That's who they're actually related to, rather than seagrass or sea bass or grouper, which are actually in the same family themselves. So that brings me to the next topic of natural food source versus attack on humans. So Myers says that in general, sharks will eat fish, other sharks, squid, mollusks, crustaceans, turtles, dolphins, porpoises, rays, and seals, amongst other animals. The key ingredient in their prey answers the next question of why do they eat what they do, is their prey needs to be fat, as this provides them with energy for traveling, hunting, and maintaining an optimal body temperature, because they're constantly moving and can never really stay stagnant. So how they hunt. I watched a documentary, 72 Dangerous Animals, Australia, and they discuss that initially they start out with listening from quite a few kilometers away, and that's how they first get their attention. The next thing they'll utilize is their sense of smell. And, humans are in the same water as their typical prey, and sharks kind of gravitate towards it, especially people like on boogie boards, surfboards, stuff like that, but it's not their initial reaction. So what they'll do is, once they start getting that smell of their prey in the water, they'll drift towards it, and a lot of times they're moving closer towards the coast nowadays. So once they get that smell and move closer, they'll start to use their eyesight for their shapes. And then finally what they'll do is they'll hit their target fast and with a single bite initially, just to cripple their prey and get a taste of it and figure out what exactly it is. And also on top of that, they do it so that way they don't damage their mouths. While they will still regrow teeth, it still takes time for them to do so. So when people get attacked, a lot of times the sharks will realize that it's not their typical prey in the food chain and leave them alone. This gravitates me towards our next point of the ecosystem. What do sharks do? What is their role? Why are they important? They're extremely important in balancing out the ocean environment. Meyersbaum, Shepard, Powers, and Peterson in their research found that apex sharks, bull sharks, great whites, tigers, all those apex sharks kept other populations in check by maintaining a species balance. So that way one doesn't over-reproduce and eliminate another one. In their work, they found that when there was a declination in predatory sharks, it gave rise to the population of a cown-nosed ray, which then terminated a century-long scallop fishery, and thus being the consequences. So sharks are important in maintaining the ocean's balance. When you mess with something even small, it can alter an entire ecosystem, and that's why they're extremely important. This leads me to discuss the interview that I had with my coworkers, and their general knowledge was pretty consistent overall. They live in the ocean, big teeth, can be aggressive, and only two of them didn't know that they were fish. And then I asked them about their fears and why it is, and all of them admitted to having a fear of sharks, and one going so far as to say they don't go in the ocean for that. 7 of the other people I asked stated that their fear stemmed from the inability to see clearly in the ocean water, and therefore couldn't do anything to protect themselves. We also discussed that their fear essentially stemmed from vulnerability, kind of like nighttime in the dark where you can't see, so you develop a sense of fear of what's around you because you can't see it. 4 others stated that their speed was what scared them because in the water, sharks can move extremely fast, whereas we can just doggy paddle away, right? So our inability to escape is what scares them. And then 4 stated their fear was based on what they had seen in movies due to aggressive behavior and the damage that they can do to the human body. So I tried explaining to them how a shark actually hunts, as I stated earlier, so that way they have a better understanding of what a shark's actually looking for and different areas of, hey, this beach at this time, their natural food is mating at this time, so this is an area you wouldn't want to go to. Different topics like that to help minimize their fears. So this brings me to cancer. True or false? Sharks don't get cancer. The answer is false. As you can see here, this is a bull shark that developed cancer. Maine provided multiple pictures as evidence and reports from reputable institutions. He quotes David Schiffman, who says, "The misconception is promoted by those who sell shark cartilage, who claim that the substance will help cure cancer. Sharks are not immune to cancer." But what is really interesting is that because of their skeleton, it is made completely out of cartilage, which is resistant to cancer, which is why you don't see as many sharks having that issue. It's because of this belief that leads me into the medicinal portion, medical purposes, and the endangered species list. Still reports that there is a recent upsurge of interest in using shark cartilage for the treatment of arthritis and cancer. This stems from traditional Chinese medicine. And the problem with that is that none of it has actually really been scientifically proven. It's just tradition, literally in the name. And because of that, Faircloth says that approximately 100 million sharks are killed globally each year, and one of the major incentives for this is the shark fin trade. With their slow growth and low reproductive rates, sharks are highly susceptible to extinction, and it is difficult for many shark species to replenish their population as quickly as they're being diminished. So literally this is leading to the endangered species portion. Wilson gives the endangered species statistic with by stating that the International Union for the Conservation of Nature lists 143 species of shark as endangered or critically endangered, near threatened, or vulnerable on its red list, and 210 more are listed as data deficient. So they don't even know how many other shark species out there might be endangered due to this. And I kind of talked about like why the cartilage skeleton has been important and essentially damaging to the shark population due to false beliefs. So, why do we need sharks? It's exactly as I stated earlier with their ecological benefits, which kind of plays into the second topic as well. They balance out the ocean. If we didn't have honeybees and on the continents that we do, then we wouldn't be able to essentially feed ourselves. Like the planet would essentially die, and that's what sharks monitor in the oceans themselves. But they do have they were recently found in 2016 of squalene, and that Hall reports that squalene differs from standard antivirals in that it increases the host cell's capabilities of fighting infection rather than targeting a specific virus. So what that'll do is they can put that into vaccines to help prevent the evolution of diseases and viruses from entering our system, making us more resistant, kind of like how sharks are resistant to cancer. But the worry is that are we going to decline the shark population even further because of this? And that's kind of where we need to find a balance on making a comeback for them. So a lot of people will ask, well, why increase the shark population if it's going to increase tax? Well, shark watching has become pretty popular, and what it'll do is it'll increase funding for their fisheries to replenish the population that is currently endangered, and help balance out the species that have gotten a little bit more out of control. Repellents have also become very popular and successful in certain areas. And they're working on developing it, and they're putting more research towards it to put it along the coastal shores where people tend to swim. That way the sharks don't come into the area. And then dehooking gear is also listed here, as a lot of fishermen, they don't have proper gear to take care of the sharks once they get caught on the line. In relation to the fisheries as well, Gilman says a study of 12 pelagic longline fisheries from 8 countries shows that incentives to avoid sharks vary along a continuum based on whether sharks represent an economic disadvantage or advantage. So what that means is in certain countries, sharks are more highly valued than others. Like Japanese finning is extremely popular, as well as Chinese. So it depends on where you go that we can rebuild the population there. In conclusion, I talked about the classification and family, how sharks are related to rays, skates, and sawfish. I talked about their diet and what goes into it, what's important to their ecosystem, or how they're important in the ecosystem, their vulnerability to cancer, the negative medical practices, and helping sharks make a comeback. I will show you the references and photo credits, but that concludes my presentation. Thank you and have a nice day.